Hello?
Yep, there
Okay.
you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear you here like this.
Could you hear each other the whole time?
Yeah.
We could, yes.
Ooh, I thought we were all in it together.
No, just you.
Sorry about that. Well, hi,
Just
I'm
you.
sorry.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. So we're all here, right?
Yes.
What's this about gravitas that you all wanted to sing a duet?
Wait, what?
I I got an email from Gravitas that you all wanted to sing a duet on here.
Oh, wow, that's
No.
that can't be true.
Really?
Yeah,
That's what
can't
friends
be
are
true.
for, was the song, right?
No, that's new to us.
I
That's
could
new to
try my
us.
damnedest, but I promise you it wouldn't help.
Yeah,
Wouldn't help with
would not help.
positive comments or reviews.
Are you here? We know you're here. You're tuned in especially to episode number 1059 of the Paul Leslie Hour. Returning to the show today is Delaney Buffett and Katie Corwin, who first made an appearance here way back in episode number, really? Single digit, episode number 3? Wow. Delaney is the director of the new feature film Adult Best Friends, which she co-wrote with Katie. So check it out. They've got a lot of great stories about the writing of the script and the making of the movie, and you're going to love these two. We love you, you love us, they love each other. So what do you say we get into the interview?
Well, it's a great pleasure to be welcoming back Katie Corwin and Delaney Buffett. They
Thank
have a
you.
feature film that's available right now on Prime and Apple TV entitled Adult Best Friends. The Hollywood Reporter calls it an endearing debut that tackles the awkwardness of aging friendships. Now, you all came requested by quite a few people, so
Oh,
there's that.
Oh, well.
that's nice. We're flattered.
Yeah, glad
Yes,
we're
yes,
here.
yes. Thank you to Mary Ann for that, by the way. So, how does it feel to release a film into the world? You've got this movie, it's your baby. You two, you wrote it together. And then at a certain point, you have to just push it out there into the world and see what happens.
It's scary, I'm not gonna lie. I think it's a new feeling for us. We've put web series and sketches out, but to have something out there, I think it's just kind of felt a little like, wow, it feels like a void a little bit because we've been working so difficult on it. Still difficult. Whoa. We've been working so I've had one coffee today, I need two. We've been working so hard on it and every day on it. And we still are, but not in the same capacity we were the last few months and years. So it's strange to not be working on it every single day. And it kind of feels scary and lost. And, you get reception and you learn to grapple with bad reviews and not read them, or in my case, read them and internalize it and take everything personally, and then have Katie be like, "Why are you doing that?" So it's been a learning experience.
Yeah, I mean it's very exciting and like I'm obviously we're so happy, but
Yeah.
since it's our first go round, we're kind of learning everything, one day at a time. And I am kind of surprised, like making it and everything leading up to it coming out was so intensive. Like we did it every day and was so kind of exhausting that you think like, oh, I can't wait for this to come out. And then it came out and I was like, oh,
Hmm.
now it's out. Like we kept saying
Yeah.
it like we like sent a kid away to college and you're like, I see. Well, I'll miss you. Like
Yeah,
all
exactly.
that time we had together. So yeah, it does feel a little strange like having it out and also like I feel kind of like protective of it. Like
Hmm.
when I do hear like not I mean I really don't read reviews because I know what it took for us to make it and I know how hard it was. I know how real a lot of the themes were for us. So like no one can really tell me otherwise, but when I do see something negative, like my reaction's pretty protective. I'm like, whatever.
Hmm.
Like, like, yeah, say it to my face. My gut reaction is like you would protect someone you kind of know, and then you have to take a second and remind yourself it's okay. Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So Delaney, it sounds like you read the reviews, and Katie, you're less likely to look at the reviews.
Yeah, I'm not reading those.
So
Hmm.
whoever's listening out here, I am seeing what you're saying, and it is hurting my feelings. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it's not something that I should do. It's not something that's recommended. I think just the first thing. Also, I think there's a point to critiques. There's a point to reviews. It teaches you something about yourself as a filmmaker, or because it's like, oh, there were weak parts in the second act. So like reading those, I find I'm like, okay, they were right. Like those
Yeah,
were
that
things I was
helps.
conscious about. But out there now in the world, everyone's a critic. And so there's certain things that are like, you hear things like blat, cheap, like all of this stuff where you're like, yeah, it was a low budget indie and like we didn't have a lot to work with. We were shooting a lot of bathrooms. So when something's not constructive, it's harder to take in because it just sort of feels targeted and mean. But again, everyone is entitled to their own opinions. I'm sure I've said not nice things about other people's work, but you just really have to, it's not why you make it. You make it because it makes you happy, and you make it because you want to make people laugh. And I don't think anyone has ever made something that's made everyone laugh. So I think it's a learning about not caring so much what people think. And that is something I've always struggled with. And so now this is a real test of that.
It's
But
funny, like,
yeah,
well, just going off that, Delaney, it's funny because you can read general, like 10 good reviews and then one bad one, and the only one you remember is
yeah,
that.
I learned the bad
You're
one.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was nice. Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. And you want to have like this, like the student in me wants to be like, wait, I want to explain to you why I did that. Like, let me just like, it's like when I got a bad grade on a paper where it's like, I was, it's like, I always wanted to with multiple choice, like fill in my reasoning behind something, but it doesn't matter how much you explain to someone because people would have done it a different way. There's very different approaches. It's art. It's subjective by its nature. You can tell we're rambling about this because you're catching us at a time where we're most vulnerable, but yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, what matters most of all isn't necessarily the critics, but it's got 89% right now on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's what matters most. So what about just personal feedback? Has there been something that someone has said to your face, as you put it, Katie? Has there been something that someone has said that really stuck with you?
I would say
Negative or positive?
Either way.
I'll start with positive. I would say positive feedback that has really stuck with me would be after in-person screenings when people would come up to us
Yeah.
and they've been crying and they would say, I went through something like this with my friend. One person in particular was like, I'm so relieved you guys stayed together because me and my best friend broke up.
Hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
like I was just so happy to see that you ended it that way. And that really stuck with me because
Mm-hmm.
like just even the idea of if Delaney and I did break up is like so gut-wrenching
Yeah.
that I was really happy that that person was able to kind of relate to the story in a way.
Yeah.
Um yeah.
Yeah. I agree with Katie. I think the screenings have been so great because, yeah, you get to hear people come up and people you wouldn't expect relate to moments sometimes you didn't even think about. Or like it's interesting, some scenes that might bother me on some days. Someone says something positive about them, and I'm like, wait, what? That scene? Like, oh, I didn't ever expect that reaction from that scene. So that has stuck to me. I think when people say they relate to something or they felt seen by something, that's what we love to hear. And, I think for people who also have made movies and recognize how difficult it is, and even if they don't agree with something or say something, I think like once you've made something at a feature level, no matter, low budget, high budget, whatever cards you're dealt, it's difficult no matter what you do. So I think a lot of time it means a lot, even if someone might have very different taste from you or style, like the acknowledgement of like, hey, I did this too, and like, great job. Like, this isn't easy to do because it isn't easy. So that's always nice to hear. And I think it's really made me as a movie watcher, as a person, not a critic, but as a critical person, it's made me really sit back and think about how much work goes into something and how precious that is to that person, no matter if I like it or not. It doesn't discount, like Katie said, all they did to get it done. So I think I really appreciate other filmmakers and writers and people like, helping us and acknowledging things, and it means a lot.
Hmm. Well, I've gotten to know you both before from an interview that we did years ago. It was you all, when I was just getting things cranking, it was episode number 3. And you all were kind enough to come on here. And so all these years later, you've got this movie. I had to think about this as I was watching the movie. I was thinking to myself, how much of this is real? How much of this happened to them? And how much of it was fiction?
Yeah, go ahead. You can go, Katie.
We always like kind of phrase it as like the emotional beats are real and the plot itself is fictional. Like we really have been best friends since we were 10. And we really have, just by the nature of that, overcome a lot of like, I don't want to say stresses on the relationship, but just changes that you have to adapt to, go to different schools, live for different cities, relationship work, that kind of thing. So that part's true. But the actual plot, like I didn't hide getting engaged, thankfully. We didn't go on like a trip and I didn't lie to her, thankfully. So we made that up.
Yeah, I think we just wanted our relationship to help make the movie and story feel as authentic as possible. And so we definitely pulled from experiences we've had, but they were very, very embellished. And like Katie said, the plot, there's certain moments like Zoom calls or family conversations or specific characters that are similar to things or people we've encountered, but the plot points we wanted to make it's a simple story, it's a loose story, it's a low concept, but we needed a story nonetheless. So that's how we built it around the lie.
Where are you all at the moment? What part of the country?
I'm in California.
I'm in New York.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're long distance.
I see. So, can you all recall, you said 10 years old was when you all became friends. Can you recall the moment that you all first met?
Yeah.
Well, very first met.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very first met, I do actually remember it. We were in the cafeteria, the downstairs cafeteria, like at the round tables.
wow.
But it wasn't like she like walked in and like
Katie has an insane memory. I have the worst memory of all time. So
that was just
that's,
because it was like, oh, well, there's 4 new kids this year. I had gone to the school since kindergarten and
oh,
Delaney
right.
in 5th grade. So it's like there's 4 new kids this year. Like there they are. So that's probably when we very first met. But when we very first became best friends, I remember that too. It was
I
hilarious.
remember that. I obviously remember that. It's just the moments or so. Like,
Yes.
I
Yes.
literally have the worst memory of all time. So I rely on Katie for that. But I remember when we became best friends. Yes. And we were at like a party and I was upset about something and she found me crying in like a phone booth in this place. And she was like, or I think I asked her to sleep over. So that part is real. And then we were pretty inseparable since.
What about when you all became creative collaborators? How did that happen?
I think we both wanted to, we both are working in film in some capacity. And then like,
Or
I think
trying.
we all were trying to, and at lower level jobs. And I think we wanted to do something. Katie wanted to act at the time and was trying to act. And I was working as a production assistant, trying like to see what I wanted to do. And I think we both always loved writing and loved being creative. And I think we were just sitting around like, what if we just tried? What if we wrote something and shot it ourselves, like a web series? And we did that. We shot 6 episodes of a web series like 8 years ago. And it worked out well for us, meaning like our working relationship was very harmonious and we both had like, the same sense of humor, very similar voice, same shared history, same friends. So it all kind of just worked out. And, I think there's a warning in working with your best friend, but knock on wood, things have been going well so far.
Yeah, it just honestly felt like one more thing to do together in like a fun way. It's like, oh, on Saturday we can watch TV, we can order that, like we could write this, and like then we could watch more TV. It's just like something else we could do.
So, what is the process that you all use to write together? How do you do that?
We usually will jointly come, like one of us will come up with an idea or it'll spark while we're together. And then we kind of take that and we put that into an outline, usually on Google Docs, so we can work on it simultaneously. And then once we sort of go through the process of developing it out or outlining it, we then go into final draft and we share a script, we share a draft and we work on it in the beginning at the exact same time, scene by scene. And then towards the end, once we get like an actual script, once we have a first draft, we send it back and forth. But we prefer to work at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Do you all ever have moments where there's a bit of a disagreement about a direction?
It's not that frequent, but it does happen. Normally, I mean, it's just like anything else. Like we don't really fight, and like neither of us are like yellers, like in our professional relationship or in like our personal relationships. Like, did I say professional? I did. In either of those. But it'll be like, the other one's really not backing down. And then we'll either like put a pin in it and come back to it and like maybe like cooler heads prevail and it's like, all right, you were right, I was wrong, you were right, I was wrong, like that. Or it can be like, I think I'm right. Well, I really think I'm right. And so we both like kind of flesh out an example. And like eventually one person will see what the other person is saying.
But often we seek a tie break. Like our friend Nikolova,
Yeah.
who produced the movie with us, who we trust a lot creatively and work on other stuff with, we'll each flesh out our idea, anonymously send her and be like, which one do you think works better? So
The
she
top
doesn't
or the bottom?
know the top or the bottom. And then once there's a third opinion, there might be a little bit more push, but yeah, we usually will come to an agreement. But it's never like we might be like Katie loves the term like passionately I
Yeah.
passionately disagree.
I'm like, no, because a lot of stuff, it's like, I mean, I really don't care. Yeah, make your
Yeah.
shit blue. But sometimes I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I
So when
really,
Katie says I passionately disagree, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a tough one to back down on. Um, but yeah, we don't really. If we disagree on something, it's not like it's dragging out a long time. I think we both trust each other's like strengths and weaknesses, I would say.
yeah. And it's usually not like a big picture disagreement where it's like, I
Yeah.
think they should end up together. I don't, where it's like, oh,
Yes.
God,
Yes.
we're a million miles away from agreeing. It's, you're normally like, it's how do we get there? And so more often than not, I would say maybe the next day, one person is like, yeah, I think you're right.
Mhm. I think the same thing is like when you get a note from an outside person. I think my initial reaction still, and I've gotten better at it the more we do this, but whenever you initially get a note from an outside person, I used to be like, I need to reply to an email right away because I disagree with everything they've said. Because you're just like, you put it out there and you're just like, I didn't know. And then you wake up. I would remember I'll wake up the next day, and I still do this, except now I kind of like allow myself to be like, this is your reaction every time, take a day. But then you wake up and you go, they had some really good points. I see everything they were saying, and I think we should try this. So I think anytime, even if it's Katie or myself, like the initial reaction, I was like, no, 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 because you're so, it takes a lot of work to write something. So once you've poured yourself into it, a part of the process is like killing your darlings or having to start over a page one rewrite. So it's kind of having to really subdue emotion a lot of the time and sort of like trust that there are other people. That's why it's a collaborative creative process. And, I think, like Katie said, normally cooler heads prevail, but sometimes inside you're just like, oh, and you're hurt.
The thing about anything related to the entertainment business, movies especially, but anything really creative or associated with the entertainment business is the amount of rejection that goes with it. I've had people, they ask me, what happens when you request an interview? And I usually say, usually nothing. And they don't understand what I mean. And it's like, no, that's really like, I wish I could get rejected, because there's just nothing, you don't hear anything. And that can be one of the
Yeah.
worst things of all. Can you all talk a little bit about that side of making a movie?
Oh, I mean, same thing.
Yeah.
It's like I would have loved to pass.
Right?
You just never even heard. Like that one's definitely probably stings the worst. I think, like you said, it is truly primarily rejection. For making a movie, indie it may be a little less so because you have a little more control than you normally would, but maybe trying to make a movie, the writing as a career, acting as a career, like it's truly 99% no's.
Yeah.
Like, which is crazy. Like you have to just be basically like I mean like hard-headed. Like you have to
Yeah,
be sure of yourself to the point of like almost like lunacy, where it's like, no, everyone said it's bad. And you're like, I think it's good. Like you just
correct.
have to drive it home. And there are some days honestly where it can be really hard, you know, like if you just had your hopes up and it got further and you got a few yeses and then ultimately it's another no, like there are some days where it really is hard. Makes it a lot better to be doing it with Delaney, obviously.
Yeah.
Like it's would be brutal alone. It's brutal together, but a little less so. um but it's just similar to bad reviews. It's just like, well, I don't agree,
Mhm.
and that's like all you can really do, I think.
Yeah, I think it's mostly rejection, and you have to have resilience. And I think, like Katie said, it is like, oh, no one wants to make this really, but I still think it should be made. And I think you just, for us, like I hope and I think that it just makes you a stronger writer. The more rejection you get, the more you learn about the industry, the more I don't think we ever want to be writing, to fit into a certain box, but you do understand more about structure and understand more about how and what gets made. Like even when we were writing this, like we knew that the stuff we'd written in the past was way too expensive. And so it's like, and that would be getting rejected. And it's hard to get money to make a comedy now. So you kind of learn that. And the more you learn about the industry, the more you get rejected, the more you hear, if you're lucky, you get a rejection with a why. And then you can think about that why and, again, let it stew a little, let it hurt, percolate, and then take that and try to make it better. Katie and I have been writing a script for 7 years. And if anyone ever saw the first version, which they did, I think I'd have a heart attack. If I myself read the first version, I would be like, we need to like hire someone to go on the internet and like scrape it from anyone's email who ever received it. But I don't know. But we've been writing it for 7 years, and I think, we've had it. There's been a lot of rejection around it. Like we've had good things happen. It's been in development a lot, but I think every single thing has made it better. And it's one of those ideas that I think we believe in and we don't want to give up on. Whereas there are other ideas where you kind of have to be like, okay, I think that this one has, done its rounds. Let's get creative. Let's think of something new. But I think it's a balancing act either way. Just like, learning from the rejection and also not letting it dissuade you creatively.
So, who came up with the title? I'm a big fan of a good title, and I especially like titles that almost sound like contradictions. I like the name of the organization. I think they're called Adult Children of Alcoholics. And I like different things like recorded live, that seemingly. So, who came up with the title?
I don't know. I think we'd always kind of joked that like as adults, it sounds weird when we refer to each other as best friends. And I think we wanted to do something that was like, we always wanted to make like a nostalgic, simple, like friend movie similar to like, these were bigger movies, but like the 40-year-old version and like Knocked Up and, This is 40. And I always loved those titles because they sort of were like fun and told you what it was. And to your point, like the 40-year-old virgin or, is in and of itself similar to that. So I think we wanted like a title that like preserved that nostalgia of like early 2000s movies where it was like kind of like this is what this movie is about, and it's not too subversive of a title because we couldn't think of one, and we loved the idea of like adult best friendship.
Also, like in talking to other people, like it is kind of like a specific community where I have so many times people have been like, "Oh, I have an adult best friend."
Yeah,
Like it's just like a
specific
term.
community
It's
makes it
yeah, it's a
sound.
term that people seem to use. So like I think that was a big part of it as well, where that's just yeah, whenever someone I know who maybe doesn't know Delaney but knows that I have an adult best friend would be like, I have one too. And it
Yeah,
just
that's
seems
true.
like that's it.
Yeah, people have said afterwards, like, "Oh, I have my adult best friend," and I was like, "Oh, I guess like I didn't know like there was a terminology for it, but now I know." Yeah, I don't think it was one of us coming up. I think it was just the idea that we liked the sound of it, but I forget how it was even started.
Now, was the movie filmed in Mississippi or parts of it? Go on.
Yeah, so we shot like the beach town stuff and the whole middle of the movie, essentially, with the exception of a few scenes in Mississippi in August 2023, in Biloxi and Ocean Springs, and a couple little towns in that area. And then we shot the rest at in LA at our houses. So like it's my old apartment, my friend's old apartment, my brother's house, like our producer's house, our other friends' houses. So we were, we had a limited budget, so we wanted to get as many free locations as possible. And so that's sort of like we split the filming in half in terms of locations, but a lot of it was shot on location in Mississippi.
Well, what are your most vivid memories of making this movie?
Oh my gosh, there's so many.
The word vivid makes me think of like
It makes me now I'm like,
it
okay,
makes
like
me
the
think of like
sounds, the smells.
yeah, like it makes me think of stuff that was like more physical. Like I would
Yeah.
say, I mean, this sounds small, but I swear to you, it was intense. The heat was intense.
The
Like
heat was
it
intense.
was an especially hot couple days. It was Mississippi,
Yeah.
it was August. When
Hmm.
you're filming because of sound, you can't use AC or
Yep.
and then your battery
Yep.
your mic is literally like a little heater. It's like you have like a little hand warmer on your back and you're wearing
Yep.
makeup and hairspray. So like that's tough. It was pretty warm. That's one of my most vivid. I honestly couldn't believe it. And we grew up in Florida, so I thought I've been hot before, obviously, but no,
It's a different kind of heat.
this was new. Um, God, when you say vivid, I really think heat.
I have one, but do you want
And
to?
please.
Okay. I remember like I had no idea. Like, oh, I remember playing drunk is not easy. And I remember I was just so tired and we were drinking so much grape juice and it was so hot and I was so nervous because there was like a scene where I had to like be emotional but also be drunk and there was 8 of us in the room and I'm just like, oh my God. And it was 100 degrees, like Katie said, the heat reminded me of this. And like I had to like fake drink grape juice and then also fake do cocaine. And I also like had all these questions coming towards me. And I just have a vivid memory of like I was so scared to play drunk. And then when we were doing the scene, I just felt drunk. I was so hot, so tired, so sticky, so like sloth like in my movement because of all this stuff. And think I was like, by the grace of God, this environment has made me feel drunk. Therefore, I don't even need to act drunk because I'm so slow and overwhelmed. My mouth is already the color of purple because of the juice. Like, so I have a very vivid memory of sitting on a couch in the Airbnb with my mouth full of grape juice, like so much fake B12 cocaine in my nose, like holding something, being like, I think you might be actually drunk. Like, I don't know what's in this grape juice, but I think you might be wasted. And I kind of looked over at one of our actors, Carmen Christopher, in the scene, and he's supposed to be pretty wasted too, like my level. And I was like, he kind of seems drunk too. And I think everyone was just like emotionally and physically exhausted. And to Katie's point, like the heat was a big factor in like the setting and like, but I don't know. That is a very vivid memory I have of just sitting on that couch being like, oh my God, I think you're drunk, but you haven't had anything to drink.
I also have the guy who plays Dougie, the Airbnb host, Corey Walls. We know him personally. He's like one of our friends, and he is probably one of the funniest person, if not the funniest person that I've ever met. And like every time we did a take, he would do something different and you just never knew what he would do. And
Yeah, that's
it was
true.
already so strange that like we almost got like the church giggles where like just out of the sheer anticipation of like what's he gonna
Yeah.
do? Like I was trying everything to like maintain. I was so excited to see what kind of crazy thing he would come up with. That's pretty vivid as well.
Yeah, I
Well,
think we have a ton of memories. Those are two ones that I can think of off the bat, but it was a very memorable set.
well, I'm glad you brought up the Airbnb part of the movie because I felt a lot of kinship with that. I hate Airbnbs. I had just an awful experience at one in Huntsville, Alabama. And they had all these rules, like, and I couldn't even understand the rules. They said, you know, please park in the parkway, not the driveway. I thought, like, what? What is that supposed to
The
mean?
Parkway.
Yeah, it was at this. I hope that this outs the guy who has the place.
It's really nice.
It
Here
was
you
this
go. Yeah.
very beautiful old house in Huntsville, and he had all these rules, and the guy started yelling at me from the bottom floor, and I started to yell back at him. I just wasn't having it.
Mhm.
And anyways, I love that you all captured how awful those short-term or whatever they call them rental places are. No offense to anybody who's watching who has one.
I mean, I've had some good experiences, but like you I don't want to say half the time, but maybe 40% of the time, you get someone like you're saying who's like you're just your personality doesn't lend itself to being to opening your home up. Like this is a crazy amount of rules.
Yes.
You were like, you want me to like clean this thing like the house. It's crazy. Like no, like you're renting a space.
Also, I get it. I get it too. It's like when my friends want to sublet their houses, they're like, "Oh, but I don't like want strangers in here." I'm like, "That's the price you
Totally.
pay for Airbnb. Like, do it." But it's like I'm gonna lock this one room up, and it's not gonna have this. And it's like I'd probably be the same way, where I'd be like, "Don't touch this. Park this way. Like the trash goes out this day," because like inevitably, like you have neighbors, you have people. But yes, it's like it is. I agree with you. There's like a certain personality, and a certain kind of person that like you have to be to
Yeah,
sort of
you could do something else. It's you could Uber or like just something else. Like you can't be lending your stuff out.
Right.
yeah.
Well, you all captured it very well in the movie.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I thank you, but I mean, yeah, I think it's like again, if I were doing it, I would be like, "Don't touch that," or da da da. Like, so I totally get it when you're in someone's house and they're like giving these rules. I'm like, oh, I can see the origin of this, but also like, yeah, it's difficult to let people in your home, but it also is. There's some funny. I've heard the funniest stories of people's Airbnb experiences, just not even host wise, but just in terms of environment or place or photo to reality stuff.
so Katie, did you really chug that land shark
You
lager?
always get this question. So
Yeah,
funny.
I chugged about a gallon of it. No, it was apple juice. I mean, I did chug a bottle of apple juice. I think 6 times was the final
You
count.
chugged a lot. There was a lot of liquid.
Decent amount of juice. Yeah, granted, the carbonation obviously makes it harder, so I didn't have that going against me, but that was a lot of apple juice, I think.
I thought it was a lot of, I mean, just to chug, to do anything that many times. Yeah, it was a lot of apple juice. You have to interrupt, you have to pour it in. A lot of carbonation.
Yeah. Well, the movie was dedicated to Jimmy Buffett. Was he on both of your minds throughout the making of this? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think so for sure. His health was declining and so that was on my mind often, but I really wanted to do it for him. And I think it was a blessing that we did it in Mississippi because that is where he was born. And, he grew up in Alabama, but he, was in Gulf Shores a lot and was from Pascagoula. So that was always in my mind. And, we were sending I think we were sending all of our friends and families, we were so proud of what we were doing. I think we were always sending stills and photos and stories and FaceTiming just because at the end of the day, we were so exhausted that like we were just excited to talk to any family members and share all the crazy stories. So yeah, I think he was a part of the process for me, even when he passed throughout the entire post process, just in on my mind. But yeah, I think, he certainly was on my mind and I dedicated it like we dedicated it to him just because not only, he did pass, so it was in his memory, but yeah, we shot it where he was from and, it would have not been made without him. And we were very aware of that. So yeah.
And Katie, what about you? You got to know Jimmy Buffett. How did you see him?
I mean, I saw him as Delaney's dad. So, I mean, I wasn't I it wasn't like a I didn't know the music really before I really met Delaney, so I never really had that kind of like that like fan element. So I really knew him as Delaney's dad. I knew him as like an incredibly hard worker. Once I got older and realized kind of like how famous he was, I knew him as someone that like was just so kind. And I always thought his fans would be so happy to know like that he really is like that, when you know him personally, that's who you're getting. I always thought that was so sweet. And I just knew him as like such a sparkly person, he just had it. But more than anything, I knew him as Delaney's dad, and that's how I was thinking of him during the movie.
Not just the Buffett songs, but all of the songs in the movie. There was a Jenny Lewis song in the movie. I thought that was really good. Did you all pick the soundtrack?
Yeah, I picked that song because I love that song so much and I love Jenny Lewis so much. And then, we had incredible music supervisors. I always say that that was one of my favorite parts of the process is they came in and we had ideas for songs and they brought us even better songs that fit the moment and fit what we were looking for. Their names are the Radish Media and Gemma and Alec and Paymon. They all worked really hard on it and they came on board of an indie film and gave us great indie artists or like deep cuts like the Scatolites. And I think I always love music in movies. I always think that's such an amazing process to get to see how it's done up close and see the music supervisor job, which like is the coolest job ever in my opinion. And because they're not only just picking songs but they're dealing with the legal work and the agreements and stuff, which are things that maybe you don't think of just seeing that title, but they're heavily involved. And so it was kind of a combination of a lot of their work, a lot of their music, a lot of the stuff they brought to the table, and then just sort of the vision that we had for the movie in terms of working around stuff that fit with my dad's music and stuff like that. So yeah.
Something that you all did that I thought was just so exciting, and I wished that you all either came to Atlanta or Charleston, where I'm, one second, where I spend a lot of time. You took the movie on the road and you were doing all these screenings. What was that experience like?
I mean, it was incredible. It was exhausting.
Yeah.
But it was surreal. Like I mean, we're so lucky to be streaming, but like, when you're at least when we were younger, you grow up dreaming of seeing a movie of yours on the big screen and watching it with an audience. So it like fulfilled that, and watching a comedy with an audience even better. Getting to answer questions afterwards was great. And at the very least, it was so fun to do together, We were having layovers together and
Yeah.
together. It was so fun.
No, I think it's such an amazing like I think, to be able to go to these different places and see the different reactions and kind of get feedback on the movie. And like he said, it is amazing to be on streaming. It's great to be on digital, but we did not, and we're never really planning on having that traditional theatrical experience, but we wanted to have, you know, be able to sort of raise awareness and get eyes on the movie in different places just so it felt like a fun interactive marketing experience to be able to go and do Q&As and talk to people and sort of have personal interactions which you don't get a lot of the time now. And I think Q&As are such a fun experience, especially outside of New York and Los Angeles sometimes where people aren't, totally inundated by the entertainment industry, or like, Atlanta now is huge in that as well, and Santa Fe, and it's growing, but those are the places known for it. So when you get to go out, it's like, if I were to go sit in on an industry that I wasn't familiar with and I ask a million questions, it would be very interesting to sort of see how everything's done. So I think it's fun to go do those Q&As to give kind of behind the scenes peaks and stories and how this was made. And if people want to get into it, there were a lot of people who were interested in New Orleans and Cincinnati and Indianapolis, like, oh, we're interested in film. Like, how do you get into it? I think it's really great to sort of hear someone else's experience because it inspires you to be like, oh, they did it this way. I've always heard it's done this way, but there's different opportunities and different ways to sort of get into it. So I don't know. I love it. And I love the interaction with people is something that we rarely get nowadays.
Hmm. Well, I'm hoping you all can tell us more about that. People, it's exciting. You go to a screening. I've gone to screenings and you see the movie and then, hey, there's the person on the screen or there's the director. What did you find the personal face-to-face interactions to be like?
I mean, they were great. Like people were
Yeah.
so kind, and like we said earlier, like it was pretty common that afterwards someone would find us and was clearly had been crying and just said this happened to me. Like this is something I've been through, or my someone. A lot of times, guys would say my wife's going through this. Like
Yeah.
people would really relate to it, and at the risk of sounding cliche, like that just made so much of the hard work worth it because
Yeah.
you're like, I mean, that's all you want, to be able to like reach out to someone like with some kind of art. So yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it was always positive. It, again, yeah, like Katie said, I just think it's nice to talk to people afterwards and no specific, but just from a creative point, and like we would like to do this again. So it's like hearing what people responded to, hearing what people liked, what specific parts, what specific characters. It's like, you know, I loved this about that, or I felt that this scene approached this in the right way. It's something that we can then put in our back pocket and be like, oh, like people responded to this scene, they responded to this actor, they responded to this sort of comedy. How can we reincorporate that? How can we learn to sort of, what we want to do as creators is really hone in on our voice and our writing voice and our specific voice. So like being able to get live feedback is again, like we're not getting that on digital. So to be able to have that and be like, oh, okay, people are enjoying this part of it. Like maybe we're good at this or maybe we're weaker at this. So that's been a really like encouraging and also just like eye-opening experience.
Also, I would say not like necessarily with meeting people afterwards, but in watching the movie with an audience in different locations, it really helps at least me remember like everyone has their own opinion. It's not right or wrong. Like
Yeah.
some screenings would love
Yeah.
one joke, not another. Some would laugh at something that
Mhm.
wasn't a joke. And you're just like, man, everyone's watching this differently. So like
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you come in, it is like that's one person, like they're all, it's just so different, like
Yeah.
you can't make something for everyone.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
So you hinted at the idea of further hoping to do this again. What do you all, if you're daydreaming, what do you all envision? What do you want to do?
I think we want to make a comedy at a larger scale. I think we want to have some more resources. We have a higher concept we've already written. That's the screenplay we've been writing for 7 years. And I think to be able to see that and cast it with, some people we've always dreamed of working with and a bunch of, we love working with comedians. So to have that again, but I think it would just be, I think we all love being on set. So I think it would just to be back on set and have more days to shoot and have, more resources for cast and crew and not be wearing as many hats this time would be a real dream. And I don't know, I just would love to be making something again, whenever that day does come.
I mean, that's my answer too. It's
Yeah.
same script. So yeah, we just want to make another comedy with basically more resources, make it bigger, make it
Yeah.
better.
Well, I hope you all maybe do something like City of Angles again at some point. Those, I want to tell everybody who is listening, go find this web series, City of Angles. They're
Man, I
very
hope it
good.
holds up. I
I
haven't
know. I'm
watched
like,
it in a
oh,
while.
just to go watch it.
Just for everyone who's also watching, we made it 8 years ago. So I think it's great, but again, I'm so biased and so distant from it now.
Why do you all think that your friendship has endured?
Mm, I mean, I think we're very conscious of each other's feelings. Like just naturally as people, we both can tend to be trend on the people pleaser side, which we're getting better at, as we get older. But there is a benefit to it where like you're just caught, you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. You factor them in. You're gentle in how you speak to them if it's something sensitive. Like you're never really careless with the person. And I also think not that we're so old, but now that we've been friends for so long, and especially with this process, like the impact of our friendship and the value of it, we don't take for granted at all. So we know how lucky we are, and it's something that we, kind of protect.
Yeah, I agree. I think also like we've always been very communicative with each other, especially now in our more mature days of if there is an issue, we don't really let it stew. We're not perfect. It's not all sunshine and rainbows over here. But no, we do, like, we rarely fight, but I think it's because our fights, quote unquote, are like communicative conversations about how we both feel, because we're both so therapized, and we are the friendship is high stakes. It's not like we're 13 again where it's like, well, like, screw this and I'm upset. It's like, no, you're an adult now, and like Katie said, it's not lost on either of us, the value of our friendship and the value of friendship in general as you get older. So I think with all of, our friendship and all of my relationships now, like, I really want to make sure I'm putting in the effort, and it's a two-way street always, because I think I'm going to need them more than ever, in these coming years. So not just for free childcare, but also for, for support.
Well, I can say adult best friends, it brought back memories in my own life and thoughts about one of my best friends. And so that's a very powerful thing to happen. I want to encourage everybody out there, look up Adult Best Friends on Prime or Apple TV. And as always on this show, for that person, whether they're thinking about watching Adult Best Friends or they just watched it and they've checked out this interview, first of all, thanks for watching. But what would you all say to that person who just saw the movie or is thinking about it? Your closing words.
Closing words. Give me 1 second.
We're both thinking. We don't want to. Either still want to go first.
Okay. I would say that I hope that they would thank you for watching. And I hope they would walk away with a reminder that, like, there is room for everyone in your life as long as you are willing to reach out in a small way, in a big way. And nothing is set in stone. Like, what's true yesterday doesn't have to be true tomorrow. You are in control of what's ahead of you.
I would also say thank you for watching. But also, I don't know. I think honesty is the best policy too. Once you get older in friendships, I think, yes, there's selective things you can be honest about. But I think as we get older, just keeping open communication and honesty between two people is that's growth. That's better. Like I said, when you're kids, it's easy to sort of like hide things and be afraid. Like, I don't want to tell them because I'm going to lose them. But you've been friends with this person for 30 years. One small thing isn't going to make them walk away now. So I think just being honest is what keeps us going.
Such poignant final words here. Katie, Delaney, thank you so much.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Thank you for having us again. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry if I keep my mom was calling me over and over again, and I was silencing it.
No
you can
problem.
cut that part out. I don't need her to see that, but I was like, I don't want.
You were bitching.
I kept being like, then I text her finally. It's like, I'm recording a podcast. But thank you again for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. All right.
Bye.
That's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Great to see you. Thank you again for having us on. Super appreciate it. And thanks for watching.
Absolutely. And you all make another movie and come back again.
We're trying.
We would love to. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much.
Bye, Paul.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You know, the Paul Leslie Hour is made possible by people like you, listeners, viewers. Please go to thepaulleslie.com/support, and you'll know what to do when you're there. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who contributes. Performance of The Entertainer intro song by John Primorano. And of course, this is your announcer speaking. See you next time on the Paul Leslie Hour.